April 17th, 2018. Southwest Flight 1380. A routine flight turned into a moment of crisis. But long before that day, Captain Tammie Jo Shults had already fought and won battles that shaped her into the pilot she was meant to be. This is her story. Tammie Jo Shults grew up on a ranch near Tularosa, New Mexico. The roar of jets from Holloman Air Force Base was a sound she knew well. One day, while cleaning out stock trailers and stalls, she paused and told her mother, "That's what I want to do." Her mother responded, "Oh, Tammie Jo, those people are smart." Not necessarily discouraging, but uncertain, because in that time and place, a girl becoming a pilot seemed unimaginable. But for Tammie Jo, it wasn't a dream, it was a calling. It wasn't just seeing the jets in the sky that fueled her ambition, it was reading about them. A book called Jungle Pilot about Nate Saint, detailing missionary flights deep into the Amazon, was the first time she truly saw aviation through a pilot's eyes. It wasn't just about flying, it was about purpose. That book helped her set her course for aviation. At career day in high school, she was told outright, "Girls don't fly." But that wasn't the last time she'd hear no. The Air Force turned her down 3 times. The Army said she wasn't a fit. Only the Navy allowed her to take the test. And even then, it took 2 more years to find a recruiter willing to process her application. But rejection didn't stop her. Tammie Jo didn't just push forward. She pushed harder. She knew that if one person could break through, so could she. She trained, studied, and prepared, and finally she earned her wings, becoming one of the first women to fly the F-18. There were those who believed she didn't belong there, but there were also those who showed her what true mentorship looked like. "I flew with some prince among men," she recalled. "My F-18 instructor, Mike Frishy, was the last friendly face I saw there." His professionalism, skill, and respect stood in contrast to what she would soon face. Earning her wings wasn't the end of the battle. It's complicated because when you're cutting that swath through the jungle, it usually requires a machete, she recalls. But you don't want to negate that ability to have some camaraderie with people. And so trying to navigate that and stay out of some people's radar, and then once you're in the crosshairs, where they really are targeting you, making sure your skill set stays up to par, but also learning how to maneuver. During her instrument check ride, an instructor refused to grade her, not because of her performance, but because of her gender. He went on a tirade, declaring she had no right to be there, calling himself a warrior, though he had never seen combat. She listened as he ranted, stating outright that it wasn't right for her to be in the same aircraft as him. Finally, she had to interrupt. "I have a 4-plane formation flight to brief in a few minutes. I need you to go ahead and resolve my grade so I can move on." And he did. But that wasn't the end. Later that night, he called her again. This time his voice slurred as he said, "You know what? It's not right. I refuse to grade you as a woman. You have no right to be in this cockpit, and I refuse to grade you." Then, the real trouble started. Her entire training jacket, her official record, disappeared. No grades. No proof that she had even completed the check ride. Until it was found, she was grounded, but she refused to break. "The harder you push," she later said, "the more I lean into it." One of the most challenging and unexpected assignments of her military career came as a result of deliberate exclusion. A skipper that said he wasn't going to allow women to teach guns in his squadron reassigned her to instruct out-of-control flight instead. An assignment that was grueling, repetitive, an assignment that nobody wanted. She would go up to 30,000 feet, departing the aircraft from controlled flight, would have the students recover it again and again. If they couldn't, she recovered it herself. Day after day, she faced a task no one wanted, but she didn't complain. It was great training, she later reflected, and it taught me a lesson. Don't be offended when someone treats you unfairly. Get what you can out of the situation and move on. After leaving the Navy, Tammie Jo transitioned to commercial aviation, joining Southwest Airlines. It was a turbulent time for aviation, both in the military and the civilian world. I flew in a swath of time where Congress was debating lifting the combat exclusion policy for women aviators, she recalled. We went through weapons school before women were flying in combat. We were in the test zone. At the same time, civilian aviation was undergoing a cultural shift. The old belief that the captain ruled without question was fading. Crew Resource Management, CRM, was starting to be implemented. Crew resource management was implemented in aviation following a series of accidents in the 1970s that highlighted how poor communication, hierarchical cockpit culture, and human error contributed to fatal crashes. CRM was introduced to shift cockpit dynamics from a strict authority-based model to one that emphasizes teamwork, clear communication, situational awareness, and decision-making. Its purpose is to ensure that all crew members, regardless of rank, can speak up and contribute to safety, reducing human errors and enhancing coordination in high-stress environments. Today, CRM principles are applied beyond aviation, improving safety in industries like healthcare, maritime operations, and emergency response. Collaboration, not dictatorship, was becoming the norm. But even with this shift, resentment lingered. Some saw Tammie Jo's military background as intimidating, others as a threat, and some simply resented her success. But as she had done her entire career, she kept pushing forward, because aviation has always been about skill. April 17th, 2018. Southwest Airlines Flight 1380 had just taken off from New York's LaGuardia Airport en route to Dallas Love Field. At 32,000 feet, a fan blade inside the left engine fractured due to undetected metal fatigue. The explosion sent shrapnel tearing through the engine cowling and fuselage. One window shattered instantly. The cabin rapidly depressurized, and a passenger was partially pulled through the opening. The aircraft violently rolled left, and alarms filled the cockpit. Captain Shults and her first officer, Darren Ellisor, grabbed the controls as the aircraft rolled sharply left. Smoke filled the cockpit. Communication was impossible. Realizing they weren't breathing in any oxygen, the crew donned their oxygen masks. The roar of 500-mile-per-hour wind drowned everything else out. The flight crew's ears filled with pain, and yet the captain stayed calm. "If this is the day I meet my maker, then I won't be meeting a stranger," she later recalled. That clarity carried her through the next 17 minutes. The aircraft was in a dive. 19,000 feet lost in just 5 minutes, but the crew steadied it. In Captain Shults' voice on the cockpit recorder, there was no panic, only resolve. The crew took control. Despite the chaos, they focused on the task at hand. Captain Shults said, "I looked at him, gave him a nod, and took my hands off the control so he knew he was in control. 'Cause the worst thing is to have two people trying to control the same airplane." And then I made a PA announcement to the passengers and the flight attendants that we're not going down, we're going into Philly. Because even though it was startling to Darren and me, I know it had to be mind-numbing and frightening to those in the back. We continued towards Philadelphia, but I wanted them to know we had a plan and a destination. And that's when the flight attendants unbuckled and braved the chaos to help struggling passengers with their oxygen masks. 3 passengers left their own oxygen masks behind to try to save the life of a fellow passenger, and Peggy Phillips got up to give CPR on the way down. Captain Shults' leadership and skill weren't just in flying the aircraft. They were in keeping calm, instilling trust, and ensuring survival. With one engine out, structural damage to the fuselage, and a broken window, landing safely was no easy feat. Yet Captain Shults executed a smooth, controlled descent. She relied on years of training, both in the military and in commercial aviation, to guide the aircraft in. Southwest 1380 touched down safely at Philadelphia International Airport. Emergency crews rushed to assist, but it was the captain's steady hands and unwavering composure that had prevented a far worse outcome. Although Southwest 1380 landed safely, tragedy took one life that day. Captain Shults' calm and expertise saved the lives of 148 others. She stood firm when doors were closed to her, leaned into adversity, and emerged stronger. The story of Tammie Jo Shults isn't just about one flight. It's about a lifetime of perseverance, of breaking barriers, of proving over and over again that aviation is built on skill, not on gender. You don't have to check your girl card at the door to be a pilot. That's what she tells young women today. Aviation, like gravity, doesn't play favorites. It simply rewards those who refuse to give up. So to leave you with Tammie Jo Shults' own words, dreams. That word has been used so many times in so many ways, but I want to use it in its purest form, which is a thought of an adventure. Because you never just step up and do something. You think about it first. And so that's what I consider dreaming, when you're thinking about something, and that's just the starting pistol. It's taking action and the road ahead that prepares you to morph into something more than just a thought. If you were inspired by the story, share it, because the sky has never belonged to just one kind of person. It belongs to those who dare to fly.